make a good pizza, which I never have. I've dabbled, but it's never turned out good. I think I kind of want to get it over with. I don't like all the...
Yeah, right. All right.
I love to cook. I'm not into baking. The other reason is I don't really like to eat sweet treats, like everything that's out there, brownies and cookies. And I've never had a good cookie. And, brownies are okay.
I definitely have had good cookies, but I don't love to indulge.
I never eat a donut. I never eat, cookies or anything like that. So,
I don't even get a surge of pride anymore walking past a box of donuts out there. Like I used to. There was a time when I felt good. It takes a lot to just fresh, delicious donuts. They're there for you to just take. I'm not even hungry, but man, that looks good. Like that's what a donut can seduce you in that way. It's been years. Like I barely even acknowledge the existence of the free donut if it's sitting there in the bistro.
I never do either.
I don't. It doesn't. I used to. It was a battle. A little like if you go to the grocery store and you walk down the chip aisle. I did this on Sunday. I was going to get a few things for the week and for dinner Sunday night. And grabbed a bag of chips, put it in the car, put it right back, and just kept walking. Like I'm not doing it.
You grabbed chips off the rack chips and put them back,
and then I put them back on the in the rack because it was a moment of weakness. But I thought right away all this means is I'm going to eat this bag of chips by 11 o'clock tonight. And I don't want to do that.
You'll eat the whole bag in one day.
In one day, yeah. Not necessarily one sitting, but they probably would have got dusted off watching golf. It was a rain delay.
I wonder if I didn't know you. Yeah, there was a rain delay. 4 hours. I wonder if I didn't know you, but I saw you do that, if I would think that I'd have the right guess as to why you did it. You see a person take chips off the rack at the store and then return them. What reason could they have for doing that?
Guilt. Yeah, I didn't want to feel bad about myself for eating a bag of chips on Sunday, so I put them back. I think that would be my default. I mean, that's my default answer because that's how I felt in that moment, and I'm admitting it now on the radio for no particular good reason.
It would have to be because they changed their mind for some reason,
right? Because
there'd be no other reason to do that. Like you don't need to weigh them in your hand. You don't need to know anything about how heavy they are.
It's possible you could do that and then realize, wait, no, there's a bag of these in the pantry.
I have them at home.
So
change your mind.
Yeah. That's probably it's probably something that happens more often than what I did. Because usually, I want to buy chips, I'm buying chips.
Oh.
But I stared into the chip abyss and I turned back.
I take something off that rack, I've thought about it, and I'm taking it. That's what's going to happen there. Almost always. So, did you hear the bad news?
No, I did not.
Nick Emenwari is going to go visit with the Falcons.
Oh. I can't have that. I cannot have
next week.
Like he's my favorite right now, like favorite prospect in the draft, play for a team that nobody cares about. That is very disappointing. I mean, it doesn't mean they'll pick him, but man, it's not an outcome I'd be in favor of. I do not want to see that dude playing for the Falcons.
He has, it was reported today was his pro day, or maybe it still is. It's still the same day. He was reported to have visits planned with 5 teams: Atlanta, Carolina, Cincinnati, Seattle, and Miami. The bad news here, of course, is that one of them is in Buffalo, but he did say at the Combine he'd be meeting with the Bills. He was asked about the Bills, and he said he was going to meet with them.
But these are official, top 30 visits or something they call them, right? You can only have a certain number of prospects come to your facility. And as far as we know, the Bills are not one of those teams.
Bottom line, he's on the board at 30. You do it?
I would. I have no idea if they would. I every time that I have a crush like this on a guy, I always want to see it get to where the Bills have to make a decision about him. Mm-hmm. And Travis Etienne, running back, but he's going to be a slot receiver. He's not a running back, right? I talked myself into that car, like nobody's business. And that got close, I think, like a few picks away, but we never got to really know if the Bills would do that or not.
And I was thinking they would.
Yeah.
That was in sort of my panic years with the Bills in the draft. Like, they're going to draft a running back. You know they want to. Why did they try to trade for McCaffrey? And he's like, because they didn't really try to trade for McCaffrey. They just called. Why would you call if you didn't really want to do it? All of that. I miss those days. I'd love to have that back this year. I don't know what to do with this year's draft yet. But he's your guy, and you'd want the Bills to pick him at 30.
Yeah.
Of course, we don't know if they would, but he sounds like maybe too good of an athlete to get to that point.
Yeah.
But not everybody needs a safety. So there are mock drafts where he gets to around the Bills' position.
Yeah. And then there are mock drafts where he's gone by the middle of the round.
Like the one I did today.
Oh, well, there we are.
Where he went, I believe, 15th or 16th to Arizona. Would that be all right? Arizona, you never see him again. He went 16th, Emanwari to Arizona at 16, and this is a draft that I did. And I was thinking, like, I don't have a guy right now. It's probably one of these defensive linemen that they'll pick, and I don't know. I don't have like much of a preference yet. I don't really care that much like what they do among those guys or almost any defensive player. I care a little, but it came to be my turn, and your buddy Walter Nolan was on the board, and I felt like I would get a good grade if I picked Walter Nolan.
Yeah.
And there were a couple other defensive linemen, and also Luther Burden, wide receiver from Missouri. So I took Luther Burden. And for today, he's my guy because I picked him in this, and I got an A.
Oh, wow, that's nice.
I went through the second round.
Yeah.
Actually, the first 2 days. I don't have any third-round picks.
That
Bills don't have a third-round pick.
I don't want to say this like I know it's absolutely the consensus, but he seems like wide receiver 2. Most places I look. I mean, Matthew Golden, because of the combine performance and how fast he ran, may have tipped that a little bit.
Those are 2 and 3.
Yeah. So that I feel like that deserves an A. Like if you get the second/third best receiver in a draft, I know it's a weaker receiver class, whatever. At 30, that should net you a good grade.
Pick 56, Shamar Turner, Texas A&M, B+. Pick 62, JT Tuimoloau. Maybe it is pronounced that like that. Edge from Ohio State, A. Overall grade, A. PFF's comments, great job. That's a good-looking draft. Then it writes, no suggestions available for this draft. Like we don't have anything to tell you. You nailed it.
Wow.
Could you see the Bills doing this?
Walter Nolan?
Luther Burden. Or any of the receivers in play. Could you see them doing it?
I have to say yes, simply because, I mean, it's one thing, I think, to out of hand eliminate a certain position because, like, what have you said numerous times here since we really got into this process? Last 2 years, your top pick has been a pass catcher. So does that decrease the likelihood of you doing it again? Yes, I think almost, of course, it decreases the likelihood of it. But what we can't know out here is how they have the guys ranked, how they feel about them, on and off the field. Burden, for all I know, could check every intangible box there is. Like he's Bill's DNA, all that stuff. And and athletically, like he could be someone they could have their last first round grade on Luther Burden for all I know, right? And if there's just a bunch of guys that are all second or third round grades in their book, and one guy that's just standing out that way, even though it's a receiver, I could see them doing it. Yeah, it's not like they don't have a need for another high quality, high ceiling pass catcher on this team.
That's the point, right?
So
like it's that they've done it the last 2 years, yes, but how has it gone?
Yeah, like are you all set? No, you're not all set. So sure, if everybody hit, like if Kincaid rebounds from an injury-riddled second year and becomes a guy that can really be relied on, and 80 catch 5 or 8 touchdowns like that, that would be a hit. I would consider that for that pick. And Coleman hits and this guy hit, then you might have a situation on your hands where you got too many mouths to feed and you can't pay all these guys and all that kind of stuff. But that's 4 years down the road still, or not quite in Kincaid's case. case he's going into year 3, but you get the point. You got time to work that out. So, yeah, I in that scenario, it would have to be a situation to me for any pass-catching option where they are just shining the shining light on their draft board, and it's undeniable. And I think in a situation like that, they would do it, even though they've done it 2 times in a row.
What's off the table? Any other offensive position?
Quarterback.
Offensive line off the table?
I think that high, yes. I would expect them to grab a guard or a tackle on Saturday somewhere, just to have another guy. But Sale said it yesterday, and he said it a few times. Like, they are bringing not only their starting 5 back, but all the primary backups. Like, everybody's back. So that is not a position that I feel I would rule that out at 30. Maybe even in a scenario where the guy is the best, like I'm just saying about Burton. I just can't see them doing it. They look like, the cupboard's pretty full at offensive line for them. So that position, quarterback, I guess I'd want to rule out tight end.
Yep. Running back?
As well.
Be funny.
It really would be.
Which, it'd be fun.
I want to rule out running back at 30, though, yes. I'm not ruling out them taking somebody, maybe even higher than we expect, because I don't know what is going on with James Cook and the Bills. I mean, I know what James Cook has been up to because he, seems to, frequently want to remind us of what he's after this offseason. I did read a quote. I didn't listen to the conversation, but Brandon Beane was on a podcast. Sal was tweeting quotes from it, and Beane, as part of that conversation, was asked about both Benford and Cook, the 2 still prominent guys left who are eligible for extensions who have not been extended the way Bernard and Shakir and Rousseau have been this offseason. And he said, well, we've definitely been in contact with them. And that was it. It was pretty vague and not like urgency at all. Not that he would really indicate that anyways, like, boy, I'm really worried or, anything like that.
Last Friday, he said he doesn't negotiate in public, so he was also pretty short about it last Friday.
But
this is Fitzpatrick and Whitworth.
Okay, right.
Is the show?
Yeah. So, we talked this through one day last week. The Bills could really, if they were bent about it and feel like, Cook's already threatened them with not coming or something, like, all stuff that we don't know. If he's done that, then that could be their line. Okay, there you go. We're drafting a guy in the 2nd round, and, you can shut up. Like, I'm not predicting they do that, but I'm not either ruling it out.
Linebacker?
That's probably Saturday. I can't imagine at 30.
Just the positional value.
Right.
And there's not a hole.
Right.
The Milano thing is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, of course, you'd always want to get cap relief, which they do from this reported Milano reworking of his contract, but it means that he'll be up after this year. I wonder what they think he has left. I wonder what he thinks he has left. Like, I wonder if this is it for Milano.
Mm-hmm.
Big injuries, pretty long career at this point. Got to think a toll has been taken here physically. And so it would be a guess, and it's not really an optimistic one, but my thought hearing about it was that maybe it's kind of a bad omen for what he's got in the tank at this point. Maybe not. I mean, you could do that with anybody, I guess. So linebacker, no. We've got interior defensive line. We've got wide receiver. What are the possibilities? We've got edge.
Yeah, I think edge is real.
You've got corner.
Corner, definitely. Corner, to me, is still at the top of the list, priority-wise.
Number 1.
Yeah.
Should I have picked Maxwell Hairston from Kentucky?
I'm not
wait, I didn't. I wasn't able. Baltimore did it.
Oh,
Baltimore again.
You're such a tease.
It's always Baltimore. Going to have to trade up if I want Maxwell Hairston. So, but that's number 1.
I think so. Yeah, I think even Dane Jackson back doesn't move me off it. I feel like if they were to find their way to another veteran guy that's Rasul Douglas, Stefan Gilmore, Asante Samuel Jr., someone like that of that caliber, coupled with the Jackson signing, then I might want to reshuffle my priorities. But I think sitting here right now, corner, that there is still a starting position to me legitimately available at corner. Like even safety, as much as I like Emin Worry, me liking him and it lining up with the Bills' priorities can be two very different things. They've got Cole Bishop, who I expect them to give every runway opportunity to win a starting job this year. And Rapp is still here, and they brought Hamlin back. Like there's not, I would love Emin Worry despite all that, just to have him as a chess piece and moving forward beyond Rapp. I just think having a guy that can be moved like he tracks to be able to be moved like would be very exciting and enticing, but it's not a glaring need to me.
Mm-hmm.
Corner, they really, right now I think you'd say that their starting corner opposite Benford is Dane Jackson. And, I like him as a piece, as a depth piece, but that should not be your plan in April or March, that's my starting corner opposite Christian Benford. I don't think.
Life is good with the Bills, obviously, but I was just thinking about also with the draft in mind how much fun Travis Hunter would be. The Bills are maybe one of the most ideal teams for him. Not that he'll make it or the Bills have any chance of getting to Travis Hunter,
right.
But there's your starting corner. I think he starts if he is going to play corner, day one starter in the league as a rookie.
Yeah.
And then we would just have a blast whenever we wanted, rolling out, all right, how many snaps?
Right.
How many snaps on offense? That's going to be some radio show, some market is going to be very lucky.
That's going to be a
to
gift
get Travis
that keeps
Hunter
on giving all summer. Just talking about that, and of course, once the season gets here, what you're down by 6, and it's the fourth quarter. Why isn't he on the field on offense?
Right.
What are you doing?
Right.
Right. There's going to be all that.
We would ask Sal every day, what do you think they're going to do with Travis Hunter?
Right.
Too bad.
Yeah, I know you can't tell us where guys are lining up in practice.
Oh, right. That would be a juggling act.
Can you say he played offense?
What can you tell us? What are you allowed to tell us from reporting on Bills practice? Not much when it comes to Travis Hunter. He'd be especially secretive, I think, when it came to him.
Right.
Do you have a guy? It's still more than a month. I know, but I'm excited for it, even at pick 30, even if it is defensive linemen and corners. Is wide receiver possible, even maybe optimal? Let us know. 803-0550 is the number. I really don't have a certain guy. I mean, talk me into somebody. Bulldog's got his safety from South Carolina that was working out today. I hear the names, but I'm not especially moved. I wonder well, I guess we would know. If wide receiver were to happen, man, it would be. Would you be impressed if they did that, or would you think it crazy? Like, I don't think it'll happen. I think most people would say the same thing because they've just done that 2 years in a row. The offense was really good. They even signed Palmer, if you want it. And defense, there are holes, even like starting positions. Now you've got these suspensions too, so it makes way more sense on sort of a surface level. But I would kind of respect Bean if he did actually draft Luther Burden, some receiver that is looked at as having fallen to them, and thought, the Bills collectively thought, yeah, well, it hasn't worked yet. Our guys are okay. Kincaid and Coleman are okay, but they're fine. We don't have
trying to imagine
the home run yet.
I'm trying to imagine them internally feeling like it hasn't worked yet when they set a franchise record for points, right? I mean,
you heard him talk after the season,
right? The offense worked, but
they want Kincaid to get stronger, which is probably bad for his for any hope for him being a field stretcher or anything like he was talked about at the beginning. And then Coleman, they weren't. It sounded like too excited about his habits or whatever it was. So, what do? I mean, you don't have to be a slave to your past and
Right.
be like, well, we can't draft a receiver in the first round.
Right. The way they talked about both of those guys numerous times in the case of Coleman, I don't know if they doubled down on Kincaid as heavily as it sounded to me like they did on Coleman. It is a place to start thinking about how do they really feel about what they have at pass
Right.
catcher.
That would tell you.
Yeah, because that indicates to me that they don't think they're all set.
If they wanted somebody somebody prominent that would really play from this draft, they would then, the draft will happen and it's kind of a living organism, as they say, and you'll have to see what it is. But the depth at both positions, or the three positions, receiver, D-line, corner, and when they think they need to get, which one where or which one when, right? Like if you see a drop-off at receiver after the third or fourth guy, you'd want to do that early if you can. And then if it's, likewise, deeper at D-line and corner, I don't know if it is a corner, but at D-line they say that, then I've got 2 picks in round 2, and I can do that then versus the other way around. Just depends on what the draft pool looks like, I suppose. 803-0550, again, the number for your calls. If you have any draft thoughts, we'll bounce around today. Ian Harditz will be with us from Fantasy Life at 4. He loves to talk about the Buckeyes, so we'll have that. Talk about Hunter, Sanders, and Ward, the quarterbacks, and some other draft themes. And that's it. As far as I know, Trista was going to be on, but she had to move to tomorrow. We'll have Trista tomorrow. We'll have Sammy tomorrow. As we dig in on the tournament.
That's what we're going to do?
Well, partly.
Okay.
That's what they're
Sounds
probably
good.
expecting, to talk about,
right.
wanting to talk about. Lines are open. We'll be back after a break. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog here. Thanks for listening to WGR.
Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
with the big stage. Eli Manning came there the same type of way. Yeah.
Kuiper and Todd McShay maybe both put him at 3 to the Giants, or top 3. And, I just think maybe that's like coming from a real place. Mm-hmm. But as a rule, every one of these mocks that they do, I think, weekly, changes are made. Like, that's what you do. You change things around and then talk about the changes without there maybe being any information. But anybody, Mel Kiper, anybody could see it going different ways. Mm-hmm. So let's put Sanders I like Mel, but let's put Sanders at 3. Let's talk about, it could be like planned. Sure. The movement could be planned. March 18th, we're going to talk about Sanders. I'm going to put him down and then I'm going to bring him up. And then we'll move him down again, because that's probably what's going to happen.
Probably.
I don't know what's going to happen, though. I like the idea. The Titans, the Browns, the Giants, there's an argument that all 3 of them, if there's a third guy, I guess it's Dart, and that would be really early.
And that was the headline on the Mel Kiper mock draft that dropped today that I saw. It was a part of the, hey, Mel's got a draft. Welcome to the first round, Jackson Dart.
Yep. I like Seattle for him.
So that happened. I don't remember where he plugged him. But
Seattle and Pittsburgh are the 2 rumored teams in the low 20s, right? They're both Seattle just missed the playoffs. Pittsburgh went out, as it always does, right away, badly.
I think Mel had, I think it was Pittsburgh, now that I think about it. You tripped a wire when you mentioned Seattle. I think that's where my dude Emin Worry ended up in this mock draft, because I read a paragraph about Mike McDonald and having had Kyle Hamilton in Baltimore, and here's his Kyle Hamilton, and go get him.
I think Seattle, though, is perfect for a quarterback rounds 1 or 2 because of what they've done. Moving Geno Smith, yes, Darnold, but that can be short-term, not a major investment, long-term investment.
Absolutely can be short-term. Did you see they can get out of that after 1 year with nothing.
Yep. So you can draft one and sit them, go slow with it. I think the Seahawks, trading Metcalf, releasing Lockett, it's sort of a quasi-rebuild, maybe. Maybe it's a full-on. And, that's what you would do there. Yeah. So
Darnold settling for that small a commitment, to me, as much as I didn't like what I didn't like was the idea of committing big money year over year, like a market rate contract for him based on the year he had in Minnesota, which of course ended badly, but he was MVP caliber level all year long until the final 2 weeks, 1 regular season game and then a playoff flame out. Trying him on for a year for $35 or $37 million, I can't believe there wasn't a better market for him than that. Pittsburgh dancing around here with Aaron Rodgers' idea or whatever else they're doing. I would have taken a shot on Sam Darnold if I could rent him for a year to see if last year was real. That would have been worth doing, because if you make it a 3-year deal, but you can get out after 1, that's almost bulletproof. I mean, I know I'm missing a year. If you don't believe in it, then you don't believe in it. But
that's it,
right?
So,
yeah,
Giants.
Yeah,
Giants have to win. Dable has to win. And he wouldn't beat that. I think that tells you.
Yeah.
And that's how you feel about him.
But that all I'm saying is I would have considered trying that if that was the price point. I think that would have been worth a shot. 'Cause I don't have to be right. I mean, the guy played a lot of really good football and then 2 really bad games after, 6 years of just sort of wandering the wilderness. I wouldn't want to bet on that long term, but for a year, maybe he's good.
Good luck to him. He goes from the absolute dream situation with O'Connell's offense, Justin Jefferson. They blocked for him, fairly well. The tackle went down, Darisaw, and that hurt him. But, it all held up pretty well. Weapons to a team that is bad up front, that's dumping their weapons.
Yeah.
And this is a player who's notoriously way worse under pressure. That's what got him against the Rams. Detroit, they couldn't block Detroit, and he was not functional in that game. Cannot improvise, cannot, make that work under duress. So I think he's in a very bad spot. Let's go to Dennis here. Hi, Dennis.
Hey, guys. So I guess I'll start off by saying, first of all, I'm in no way qualified to be a draft analyst or anything. I have no podcast. I have nothing else, but I do enjoy going over film of guys. It's just something I like to do. And, so my analysis is definitely not professional. But I would say that, there are a couple of names, I think, at corner that I think are really fun to look at. I think Trey Amos is one, and Maxwell Hairston is another. They're both long and lanky kind of guys that are both really athletic, and they seem very, very versatile. Like they could play in any scheme. And so, that's interesting to me, as opposed to, I feel like when we drafted Elam, we knew we were getting this guy that could really only play man coverage. And you get him in here, he doesn't seem like a scheme fit, so it was a weird pick in the first place. You got to put boxing gloves on him in camp because he can't stop holding anybody. And then every time he goes out and plays, he's holding everybody anyways. For 3 years, all he did was hold people. And so it was just kind of a weird pick. And I feel like we got to pick guys that are not so niche-based. I feel like it's important to pick guys. If we're going to have a diverse defensive system, we have to draft guys that have diverse abilities. And they're not just locked into one scheme or one type of thing. And I really think that, moving forward, I go back and forth on Bean, but, I think he's had some success, but to me, it's kind of lucky success. You can call me wrong for that if you want, but you nail Josh, and then it almost seems like everything else just falls into place. But when you really look at all the picks he's had, we invest into Oliver, who's been an okay first-round pick with number 9 overall, just undersized, doesn't seem like a right fit there either. And then you just have other guys that have either washed out or just been okay early. And, man, we've gotten lucky getting the 25th corner taken or something with Benford. You can't tell me that that's not luck. All these guys are evaluating these guys the same. And if somebody thought he was going to be a potential all-pro, they would have drafted him in the first round. So all these guys are drafting corners later on, and nobody's really expecting them to start for them. And if it wasn't for that, we would have nobody at corner right now. So I don't know. I'm not big on Bean's drafting. Between Milano in the 6th and Shakir in the 5th and all these guys later, man, if we're going to win, we need stars. And the only place you get stars is in the first round. You got to hit on these first-round guys. And, I think Rousseau's a good player. I think Oliver's a good player. But that's about it.
But they're not, and neither of them I would consider stars.
Right. So we gotta pick it up. Bean can't just keep going through getting average players in the first round. It's got to start to pick up.
Joining us on the Wester Hotline is Dennis, college prospect enthusiast, film watcher, not a podcast host, but he definitely knows a lot, as he proves on our show quite often. Thank you, Dennis. That's the best of their first-round picks since Allen.
Yeah. On Elam, that definitely is how that's, I think, right, or at least it's how I remember it. I hope that how I remember it is correct. The man coverage ability, weird scheme fit. This might be ridiculous. Maybe I'll ask, if I think of it tomorrow, I'll ask Trapasso about it. But I'd love to even ask someone who really, someone like Bean or one of his assistants or something. Would you think man skills are the harder thing, right? If you're talking about cornerbacks, I guess I'm going to admit I'm predisposed to feeling like, well, if you can run with elite athletes in the SEC and play man coverage, I'm going to be able to teach you how to do the other thing, right? If you're coming out of college and your success is in zone, and you're getting picks because you're locking eyes on the quarterback and just going where you think his eyes are going, and you're having success that way. I might worry about whether you have the traits, the skills to play man coverage, but zone seems like I should be able to teach you.
Love it.
And that
Logical.
just clearly did not work with Elam. Like, I don't know. But I wonder if they thought that, if they thought the same thing. You know, like, well, yeah, we'll coach them up. And, you know, and they've had plenty of success coaching people up. Guys, there are a lot of guys that they've drafted that have you know, you can call it luck, but they've brought in low-rated prospects that have turned into players for them. You know, Milano and Bernard are great, and Benford are good example. Bernard's a little higher pick, third round, but still, they've gotten a lot out of just working with guys, and so they probably thought, all right, this guy can stick to elite athletes from Alabama in man coverage. We'll figure out how to make him functional in zone, and it just never took hold.
The caller brings up the element of luck in the draft, and I don't know. I mean, I think, sure, the late round pick, you were lucky to get him, and for it to have worked out, because all the other teams passed numerous times, including yours. You passed numerous times. So, okay, I get that. But I do think it also applies all the way into the early first round. I mean, I think there has to be some percentage luck in every pick. The players are so young, and they're going to change. The money's going to change them, or it can. Their bodies are even maybe going to change. Different temptations and how they sort of what their self-confidence is. Billy Beane, right? Famously from Moneyball, how he was like the perfect prospect, but he didn't believe in himself. And, you know, maybe that's Elam. Maybe that's going to be something where not even really knowing it about yourself at that age necessarily, you are going to want to give off an image that belies that sort of, no, I got this. You want to appear confident, but inside you're really not. And that can ruin you once you get to the NFL.
Right.
So there's luck at every level. Is there more late because that maybe worked the other way? Somebody just believed in themselves in a way that didn't really have to manifest yet because they were playing against smaller school competition, and then they just make it work. I mean, Taron Johnson, maybe. Like, they make it work. They get to the NFL, and they become elite even.
Yeah, I think it's... My opinion is it's more appropriate to say there's luck throughout the whole thing, like you're saying. I don't necessarily wouldn't want to settle for that hitting on those guys later. There's a reason every pick you make, there's a reason you make it. You're not just going willy-nilly with it. You think, I just said willy-nilly.
I love willy-nilly. I knew a willy-nilly.
You're not just being haphazard about it. Like there's a belief, something makes you believe this guy can make it. And I think a lot of what the Bills are about is believing, like, trying to find what makes a guy tick. Is this guy going to do the work that is going to be required to get all the way there? And in the case of Elam, maybe they misjudged that, or maybe he was just a terrible fit. You know, we'll see. But I think guys, especially later, you are seeking, as much as, you know, athletic traits usually don't last until Saturday in the draft, like peak athletic traits, elite athletic traits. So you got to find something else. And I think, you know, to me, hitting on that many guys that have made themselves into close to all pro level players, because Taron Johnson, Benford, Milano, all are that, or at least that.
Spencer Brown.
Yeah, I don't think that's luck. Completely. I think there's something that they are seeking that they find in these guys and they're not going to be right every time, you know, and injuries can happen and life happens to them away from football that can change, you know, the way that they approach it and all that stuff. But I don't know, man. I think every pick is someone you believe can make it. Otherwise you don't make the pick. You know the odds are against a guy that's picked on Saturday at 3:00 in the afternoon versus a guy that's picked on Thursday at 9:30. But you're in that chair. You believe a guy can make it. Otherwise, you don't put your name in there.
There's got to be somebody on that board that fits what you can imagine. Even in the last picks of the draft, you can see it. Somebody like that. Thanks, Dennis. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog with Ian Hartitz coming up in about less than 20 minutes. This is WGR. Here's Adam with us. Hi, Adam.
Hey, guys.
What's up?
I just wanted to call and comment on the Milano situation. Despite his age of 31 and that he hasn't been all that durable the last 2 years, he has made some of the most impressive, at least in my memory, plays in recent Bills history on defense. And the fact that he would become a free agent after the season, I'm just not all that comfortable with it. I mean, I know that there's a lot to say, like he's probably played his best football after next year, but it's tough to think of like Milano just not a part of the organization, like because we think that that's the right choice, meaning the Bills.
Well, I feel like there's a question to be asked about what his physical state is. That was my reaction to the news. Is it sort of closer to the end than we may want to think? But we'll see. We don't know, Adam. No doubt about his excellence over the years. Just like he's been through a lot physically.
Yeah, I mean, I love this player and have loved watching him play. But you should be used to seeing the Bills play without him. I mean, the last 2 seasons they've played largely without him. That's not to say like you don't miss him when he's not there, but you know the machine keeps rolling. So I hope he can rebound and have a healthy year. Because I agree. I think by the end of the year, like when he first got back on the field, I think there was a conversation, and we had it, a few times anyway. Not that anyone was like, get Milano off the field. Dorian Williams is flat out better. But at that time, I think Williams was playing better football than Milano was when he first re-entered the lineup. But what I always thought they were doing, I don't think they ever actually said it, but it would make sense. They were giving him the runway to kind of find his game, see if he can get it back. And I think by the end of the year, the playoffs, I think he looked pretty much like what you're used to seeing, at least maybe not as often, but it was there again. So maybe through a healthy offseason, he can get back and not have something sidetrack him in the summer like it did last offseason and, get on the field and contribute. And, who knows, maybe that changes. But at his age, another contract, another commitment, I don't know. I get it. I think the Bills, I wanted them to knock his cap number down somehow. And I think it tells you a lot about what they may expect him and out of him, that they were willing to give up a year of control over him. I think that speaks pretty loudly. They don't have to be right, but it makes sense.
We don't have to be right.
Right.
That's
right.
what we both thought. Getting connected with the fans brought to you by Northtown Kia, Western New York's #1 Kia dealer. Shop online at northtownkia.com. Remind me later to ask you about MLS. Okay. I can do it off the air if you think it'd be a terrible question to ask on the air.
Okay.
You love watching soccer. MLS just popped on after the Yankee game, and you hurried to change the channel.
Yes, I did.
And we're not even listening to it or paying attention to it, but you put on Aussie football. In fact,
well, the
MLS
the segment was starting, so I was going through and I just said let's see what this is.
This will do for now.
Yeah,
we've got Collingwood. I don't know PA. It's the new season.
Pa,
Pennsylvania. It's PA.
Pa. Yeah.
I don't know PA.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I remember that did fantasy that one year.
There is a right big crowd at this event.
It's the beginning of the season. It's
probably a massive stadium, and it looks packed.
Yeah, it does. I wonder if Gillette Stadium was packed for that soccer game. You probably tore a muscle getting up to change the channel from MLS. Ian Hart, it's next. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog, WGR.
The Buffalo Bills have reportedly restructured linebacker Matt Milano's contract. This move would be saving Buffalo $3 million on their cap, but also make Milano a free agent next year in 2026. Our own Sal Capaccio has the latest up on our website at WGR550.com. Over to hockey, the Buffalo Sabres getting a win last night to kick off their 4-game road trip. They won 3-2 in overtime last night against Boston. Buffalo's won 2 straight, 3 of their last 4, and are in action again against the Utah Hockey Club on Thursday night, 9 p.m. faceoff. Head coach Lindy Ruff caught up with Jeremy and Joe this morning on WGR, and he gave an update on 3 forwards still out for the Sabres. JJ Peterka likely to play against Utah on Thursday. However, Yuri Kulik is still in concussion protocol, while Josh Norris remains out due to injury. Elsewhere around the NHL, Alex Ovechkin is 8 goals away from Wayne Gretzky's all-time record. Washington hosting the Detroit Red Wings tonight at 7 o'clock. Meanwhile, the play-in round for March Madness begins today. Both games on the men's bracket will be for seeds in the South Regional. St. Francis and Alabama State tipping off at 6:40. That would be for the 16 seed in the South, while North Carolina takes on San Diego State. That one a 9-10 tip-off. That one for the 11th seed in the South. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of business. I'm Derek Kramer. You're listening to WGR Sports Radio 550.
Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
Rays, they're defunct.
They don't exist anymore?
They don't exist anymore. I just
the Red
decided
Sox?
Today. We should make a call and let them know, but I just the guy, the painting guy. Who's the painting guy?
Bob Ross.
I'd rather watch Bob Ross than watch my favorite baseball team play in Tampa. Outside, though.
It was outside. Their games will be outside this year.
That's right.
Their home games.
Their dome got torn up.
Yep. We didn't even watch the Rays. We watched the Yankees and the Red Sox play at the Steinbrenner Field there in Tampa.
Which
That's
is
where the Rays.
Tampa will play games.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. You know your baseball. Ian Harditz with us. Fantasy Life.
Or my logistics.
Ian, how are you?
What's going on, guys? Mike, congrats on the ship chasing hosting gig, man. I got to tune in here soon.
Thank you. It's really been fun to do it. Have you played more holes of golf this year, or what number is higher, that or number of drafts in?
If you would have asked me this a week ago, it would have been drafts. I got about 15 to 20 over at Underdog, shout out. But this last weekend, man, the wife was visiting some family, so I got all 50 holes in. Unfortunately, sitting home for months on end doesn't exactly improve the golf game, but it's still a fun time when we get the chance.
Yeah.
My dad used to say that, because I would often, I don't know often, but I remember like starting a season well. I'm just I was like a 12 at the time, maybe. That's the best I ever got. And he's like, no, it makes sense. If you watch golf on TV, you can learn. And he thought it made sense that you would play well, like right out of the chute to start a season. But maybe it was a fluke.
Got the positive vibes going. I can see it. So we'll, it's all clear in my head, and then all of a sudden you get on the course, and that much harder. So I think the problem is you go to the driving range and stuff. You're not drinking 6 or so beers like you are with the boys out there. So maybe I need to work on my preparation. More so matching what we're doing live.
Right. Or start walking. I've been walking the last few years. Ian, I started playing golf very regularly. This is my 4th season now after not playing much at all for, my 30s all the way into my 50s. And I'm walking, and that really puts a limit on the amount of drinking that you're going to do, because you really got to carry it with you. And, who wants to do that?
That's a legit good workout, though. If you're walking 18, you're getting your steps in. That was on Saturday. It was, one of the cart path only days. And afterwards, I was a little more, you feel in the hips a little bit more the next day.
For sure.
Do you aim for the cart path? That's a bad sign. If you're aiming for the cart path, don't hit it left if the cart path is on the right. And have to stay on the cart path.
Well, it's nice of you to congratulate Mike on his hosting this ship chasing podcast. You, Ian, we don't know each other that well, but I've always enjoyed these appearances when you've made time for us. I'm a Fubo TV subscriber, And I don't know, a couple of months ago, like I think it was right after the season ended, maybe, or maybe it was even late in the NFL season. I was just, hey, what's on here? Like I don't even, I really go in there and I watch the Sabres play and the golf on the weekends and whatever. Like it's not, I don't spend a lot of time in the app. You know what I mean? I know where I'm going and I get there. And I scroll down to the bottom and there's this little, like, well, what's the Chiefs offseason plan? Or like this team or this player and that. And I click on it and I wasn't sure what you looked like, but I hear the voice and I'm like, I think this is that Ian Hartitz guy. Is that going well? Is that still going? And it was you, as it turns out. That's pretty cool. It was nice to see you visiting my TV.
Yeah, man, appreciate you. But yeah, the Fantasy Life Show, you can find us on Fubo, YouTube, podcast, wherever you get it there. Some might argue I have a face that's a little bit better for radio, but that's for everyone to make up their mind about. But no, it's fun, man. We're live, not always live, but we record Monday through Friday out there. So I always find something to talk about. I was, before this, talking to my buddy Dwayne McFarland about some of the wide receiver movement over the course of the last few days. But yeah, man, I know in today's day and age, particularly with free agency and the trades, always some sort of goodness going on in football. We can draft whenever. So we're just trying to be, there along for the ride.
What the Bills have done is, at that position anyway, is Joshua Palmer. Losing Hollins, probably losing Amari Cooper, who has not signed anywhere yet, as far as I know, and then adding Palmer. What's the net result of all this for you?
Man, I get the idea that Palmer is a good fit for what they have because he does give them, that guy that more one-on-one can route some dudes up on the outside. And when you look at, Keon Coleman, more of a jump ball specialist, at least at this point, Khalil Shakir is more of your slot yak guy, similar sentiment for Curtis Samuel. He does fit that mold, but you had Stephon Diggs, who just did everything Josh Palmer does at a much higher level. You can talk about him, being a bigger issue in the locker room, whatever. But I guess my thing for Bills fans is just like, it's 3rd and 7. You're facing the Chiefs in the AFC Championship. Do you really want your play to be going to Josh Palmer in a one-on-one situation? So I think he's fine, but I just don't think it's the sort of needle-moving room I was needle-moving move. There we go. That I was hoping for out of this group. But at the end of the day, you could also say that Palmer is a solid wide receiver, and should you be trying to reinvent the wheel when you guys were, an iffy spot and Dalton Kincaid dropping a ball away from maybe overcoming those demons? So it's fine. I think, it's a free agency move where a guy got paid $36 million, so we're forced to talk about it quite a bit. But in terms of Josh Palmer being someone that I think is going to strike fear into the opposing defenses, don't think he's quite that guy.
Yeah. Do you think the Bills maybe got away with it last year, not having, everybody eats was the mantra here. They did pivot to Cooper, which I think is important to remember that, that was the plan going in. They never really replaced Diggs. And then they decided 6 weeks or so into the season, hey, we better do something. And they did. And Cooper, the best you could do is speculate that he opened things up for someone else because he didn't really do much at all himself as far as catching passes and having a big impact in games statistically. And now with Hollins gone, I kind of feel like there is still a spot. And I don't know how much attention you pay to what teams say about guys in an offseason, but the coach and the GM have both been pretty pointedly critical of Coleman and the way he handled, really, I think, largely coming back from injury. So I wonder how all set they might feel like they are or not.
Yeah, that's what kind of stinks about Coleman, because before he had that injury, it seemed like he was starting to really come on. And, he is one of those guys where you saw it with Josh Allen. I mean, what was that Detroit game, I think, where he just bombed it 70 yards downfield, told Keon to keep on going. I mean, there was enough trust there that Josh was willing to lay it up to him. I think it was actually the Rams game that we saw. Either way, Amari Cooper, though, I was surprised to see him never exactly get the chance to keep going throughout the season. I mean, he had the debut where Keon was telling him where to run. Even at the end, had that nice contested catch touchdown against the Jets. But I do wonder, man, because he missed Week 18 because of a personal reason. Then we had the hand and wrist sprain going on that he was kind of dealing with. I know Keon had a hand injury as well. So I'm just not quite sure what either guy had going in terms of being 100% healthy. But clearly they're still trying to figure out who can be that ace guy on the outside. Now, to your original point, point, though, did it really matter, again, when you were that close to winning the AFC as it began? Not necessarily thinking it overly did. So if you are going to war with your top three being, Shakur, Palmer, and Keon, do think it could be worse. But, man, it certainly would be a great time for Dalton Kincaid to really emerge as that number one, because that's been the thing. Like, we were hoping, obviously, when they used the first-round pick on him, that he could be not Travis Kelce, but that was kind of the idea, right? It was to get this tight end who's more of a wide receiver who can lead your pass game. And so far through 2 years, for one reason or another, just hasn't quite panned out just yet. Could be worse. Definitely could be better. Ian Hartitz with us from Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog here. Ian, of course, joining us on the West Her hotline. James Cook, Ian, so you've been drafting. Here's a guy, 18 touchdowns last year, 16 rushing, which nobody thought was possible, I would say. Then more in the playoffs, running back 14 in fantasy drafts. He wants a contract, but it's still March, and I don't know. I mean, we're not freaking out about it. We're talking about it, though. What about Cook? He's always kind of been lukewarm as a fantasy asset, and even maybe as a real-life asset until last year when it just popped. Is that for you drafting-wise, or just your assessment of him as a player going forward? Seems like if you got anything close to last season again, and you're drafting him there, that's a huge win. It was just funny seeing him break out the way he did, and even people that I'm sure were pounding the table to draft him, like, in no way saw it come to fruition in this manner, right? Because, all of his receiving numbers actually took a step back, and I know he dropped, 3 or 4 touchdowns in 2023, but still, you just don't even see many running backs, have the opportunity to drop these downfield wheel routes in the first place. So I thought if Cook was really going to take a big step forward in 2024, it would be as one of these rare running backs who's also more or less the number 2 option in their pass game. So instead, like you said, man, got the 16 rushing touchdowns on the ground, and his touchdown rate, 7.5% of his touches were turned into scores, easily number 1 among all running backs. And it was actually the 7th highest mark in a single season since 2000. So we just, when we hear guys saying, "Oh, he's going to regress" and stuff, it's one of those things where I don't want to, I don't want to harp on it too much, because hey, they had to obviously be really good to have numbers that you think are going to regress in the first place. But just again, in an offense that still likes using Ray Davis on early downs, obviously Josh Allen's always going to factor into the equation near the 5-yard line. Do I think he's going to score 2 touchdowns? No, I'd take the over on that. But 16, not exactly seeing that either. So, like anything, probably going to finish, somewhere around the middle. But I just wonder, when you're looking at the Bills, they've already decided that they don't apparently want to be in the business of overpaying a wide receiver. So are you really going to all of a sudden look at James Cook and make him one of the highest paid running backs when, let's face it, the one game he did miss, Ray Davis looked very good, filling in for him as both a rusher and receiver, and even Ty Johnson on third downs.
Yep.
Ty Johnson, number 1 last year among all running backs in yards per touch. And I know it's a small sample size with that, but he's another dude who certainly was, showing his worth. So obviously with Buffalo, again, not going to be big spenders as long as Josh Allen is making all of his money. I think they've done a great job of, extending some of their players, a year or 2 before they hit the open market. Maybe the Bengals could learn a thing or 2 about that. But when I just look at maybe what they could do in this draft, not that running back is a big need, because I do think with Cook, Davis, and Ty Johnson, that's perfectly fine. They accomplished everything they needed to last year. But to see them have pick 30, pick 56, and pick 62, there's some really good running backs that are going to be going off the board inside the top 3 rounds. So I do wonder if, we see them maybe go after one of the Ohio State Cats or something like that at the end of round 2, maybe spelling the end of James Cook's tenure after this season.
Yeah, I feel like, few things here. The touchdown breakout is like the worst possible time to negotiate a contract with the guy, as far as I'm concerned. Like, no thanks on that. And yeah, I've been saying, I don't know. I know how it will be perceived out here, or would be, if the Bills were to do what you just suggested. It would be like you're telling James Cook, forget about $15 million a year, and come on in and you can go be a free agent after this year, I think is what they'd be saying. Or maybe even more so dramatically, being worried about making sure they are covered in case he decides not to show up for some amount of time because he's unhappy that he hasn't gotten the money. Like an early pick in a running back rich draft would be a big move by the Bills, I think.
Yeah, and look, it's nothing against James Cook. I mean, you watched that Chiefs game, and I remember one of the big storylines afterwards was like, why did James Cook not get the ball more? I mean, he's awesome, and if you want to look at him in the just overall hierarchy of running backs, I mean, well, he probably should deserve to get that money from somewhere, but I didn't watch the Bills last season and go like, oh, yeah, like they have everything they need here at running back. That's where the money should be going towards. I watched them not be able to get off the field at the end of that Chiefs game and really not be able to slow down a passing attack that looked really average for large portions of the season. So looking ahead to 2025, I mean, right now, only the Rams, Eagles, and Chiefs, three very good teams, I'll admit, but those are the only squads with fewer dollars than the Bills actually devoted to their defense. So I know they brought in Joey Bosa, they got Dane Jackson, a couple things have been going on over there, but man, again, if you are going to have limited resources, which we do in the salary cap era and everything, I'd like to see the Bills, look more to the defense than running back.
Ian Harditz, I owe you a beer for that one. We can talk running backs with the second round. We can cite you and your take because that's fun stuff. You mentioned your Buckeyes in there, 2 running backs, another receiver who could all be first-round picks, should all be, at least by day 2 or even round 2, selected. Henderson, Judkins, and Ibuka at wideout. Let me hear you on Ibuka compared to the several recent star receivers that have come out of Ohio State. How does he rate?
I think he's, it's saying he's the worst of the group. It sounds like an insult, but when you look at the other guys that have come out, it really shouldn't be perceived as that. But my comp for Ibuka, is someone the Bills fans are obviously familiar with. But I think he's Gen Z Robert Woods, where he's solid at everything, but maybe doesn't, have that just one sort of elite skill in his, bag of tools or whatever. He's just, solid out there and a little bit of everything. And guess what? Bobby Trees, fantastic nickname, all-timer, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those Rams years when he was in a well-schemed offense with McVay and Goff doing their things, he was a 1,000-plus yard receiver. They even used him a lot in the run game, and he was also, a really good blocker out there, things that we also saw from Ibuka at Ohio State. But, it's just one of those things where Ibuka, he ended up in his career having more receptions than any Ohio State player in the school's history, but at the same time was never actually the number one on any of those teams due to the presence of guys like Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, and the next big thing, Jeremiah Smith. So Ibuka's solid. He's done most of his work out of the slot. I don't think he should be, I don't think he should be viewed as someone who's only confined to the slot. I think he can still be, your Z guy who you get in motion, just ask to block and do things like that. But I would be concerned for any team that's looking to draft Ibuka, thinking like, oh man, this is our 140, 150 target number 1 wide receiver. But, you want to add him on as your 2 or God forbid your number 3, then I think we really could be cooking.
So compared to other receivers in the draft, you have Golden, McMillan, of course, probably up top, it seems, Luther, Burden. What about wide receivers this year? I saw a mock draft yesterday where there are only 2 in the first round. McMillan, I think maybe is mildly controversial, maybe not as fast as people want. What do you see happening in the draft? Who do you like the most?
I mean, definitely be Hunter if he could just decide to play wide receiver. But, maybe after seeing that Derek Stingley Jr. contract, he's all of a sudden feeling just fine sticking at corner. So Hunter's doing his thing. The whole Ted McMillan thing is just kind of weird because, I saw, and shout out, I think it was Daniel Jeremiah. He does great work and everything, but he just pointed out today that we haven't had a wide receiver drafted in, the top 15 that ran a 4.5 40 or slower since Mike Evans. And, what we heard from the pro day after some initial claims is that we did have Ted McMillan in the 4.5 range, but that just leaves out guys like Marvin Harrison Jr. and Drake London who chose not to run, period, and honestly probably made themselves a good amount of money by not choosing to run. So that's what kills me with some of this. I mean, and a couple of weeks ago, everyone's calling, oh, McMillan's afraid to compete. What's going on here? Guys don't want to run, and then they do run, and the times aren't as fast as they would hope, and all of a sudden everyone's slandering him for it. So the whole, just combine and then pro day just thing, which, by the way, we're still literally in the year 2025 going off of hand times from scouts at a pro day that we don't have any video of. It really is a joke what we got going on there. But I don't think that, those times are anything different from what we see on film from McMillan. When you're 6'5", 250 15 pounds, you're not going to be running a 4.3. And honestly, I just don't think it should change your opinion based on that time. So for me, McMillan still does deserve to be the wide receiver 1 if we are counting Hunter as a corner. And then I probably would be going with Golden and Luther Burden with Ibuka as my wide receiver 5. So I think it's a bit of a tier drop-off after that. Still got some quality day 2 guys, Trey Harris, some of the Iowa State wide receivers doing good things as well. But I do wonder if maybe it is just a class where we don't exactly have the Brian Thomas Jr., the Malik Neighbors, someone that can come right in and just be a straight-up baller. But if I had to put a chip on anyone, probably would be Ted McMillan.
I can appreciate the line of demarcation that the 4.50 designation and guys not being drafted, the last one being Mike Evans, but Mike Evans, that worked out pretty friggin' good.
You're saying that was a good pick?
I think that was a good pick. The guy has done his 1,000 yards every year of his life.
When the Bills, literally, when the Bills traded up for Watkins, you think maybe they could have just
hung out and taken.
Or Evans went before their pick, but Beckham didn't.
Right.
Beckham didn't.
That's it. Right.
Man, Sammy Watkins before injuries, though, I still remember the things he did to my Buckeyes in the Orange Bowl. That dude was special for a couple of years, man.
What do you like at the top of the draft before we let you go, Ian? And I always have to remind myself about Hunter in the context of wide receivers. Everybody thinks he's the best one, and I think of him as a corner. But yes, Tennessee, Cleveland, Giants. Is it 2 quarterbacks, over, under, 1.5? What do you think?
I think we'll get to 2, not necessarily because Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders are deserving of being, top 3 overall draft picks, but it's just the positional importance. We had 6 go in the top 12 picks last year, and, we can argue that all 6 of those guys were better than Ward or Shedeur, but it just seems like, more than ever in, today's day and age, teams understand just how much you are setting up your franchise for success if you can hit on one of these earlier round QBs. And even in the Giants case, Brian Dable and company obviously kind of on their last straw at this point. So why not take a swing in the draft? I mean, if you're looking at all right, we can either draft Shedeur Sanders at 3 or, bring in Aaron Rodgers, Joe Flacco, Jameis Winston. I'll go ahead and take my chances that hopefully Deion Sanders' freaking kid is actually quite good at football. So, again, I've watched their tape and everything. I agree that, Shedeur, you see the lack of arm strength, obviously not the most athletic guy in the world, but some of these stats, the completion percentage over expected do paint him quite favorably. And then you have Cam Ward, who, really the things he can do off script, in addition to just some of the arm talent he has, when everything is going his way, it's clear why he has fans as well. So I do think we see, a couple of early quarterbacks. Maybe Jackson Dart actually sneaks into the end of round 1. What'll be interesting to me, though, is if someone falls in love with Jalen Milroe.
That's my guy.
Yeah, right, man. The rushing there, just you don't see quarterbacks erase angles in the run game quite like Milroe was able to do. And I understand, complete project as a passer. There was a lot of things not to like there. Took a lot of sacks. The Michigan performance was rough and everything. But, hey, we saw Anthony Richardson go 4th overall, okay? So, if you do have to try to say who has the highest possible ceiling, Burrow's going to be up there. I do wonder if, we could ultimately be surprised at how high he goes.
Bulldog and I have a bet. I said out of the first round. He said top 10. We settled on top half of the first round.
Right.
So
I'm gonna lose, but whatever. I'm seduced by the traits.
I would have bet all the money in my pocket's not enough.
Portfolio
is too much.
Portfolio?
I would have bet a lot of money last year against Penix and Nix. That's all.
Yeah.
Right.
And top 12, like you said, Ian. Ian, great to catch up with you. It's always fun. If you ever want to do a draft together, I'd be honored. I don't think you and I have ever done that, but I'm sure it would be a great time.
Let's make it happen, man. Sounds great.
All right, let's go. Thanks, Ian.
Appreciate you guys. Take it easy.
Yep, Ian Harditz, MB Fantasy Life at iHarditz on, as Bulldog calls it, the X platform, which is because that's what it's actually named.
Yeah, I guess so.
Footballguys.com rookie draft guide comp for Shedeur Sanders, Tony Romo.
Wow. All right.
You like that? I don't know. I haven't seen enough of them to any of these guys really to have my own, who do they remind me of? Traits and everything. Size. Oh, that's traits. But Tony Romo for Sanders. 803-0550. There you go. Could the Bills tap into running back in round 2? What would happen if they did that? Would that be game over for Cook? Is that realistic? Do we want it? I'm just going to ask, do we want it? I'd love to have, Ian really does a great job for us here. I'd love to have it be kind of believable.
Yeah.
Which, maybe it is. Lines are open. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog here. We'll look for your calls next here on WGR.
Buffalo Bills have reportedly restructured linebacker Matt Milano's contract. That move would save Buffalo $3 million in cap space, but also make Milano a free agent in 2026. Sal Capaccio has the latest on our website at WGR550.com. To hockey, the Sabres winning last night against the Bruins, first of 4 straight on the road. They'll be back in action again in Utah on Thursday night. Head coach Lindy Ruff told Jeremy and Joe this morning that J.J. Peterka likely to play against Utah. Yuri Kulik still in concussion protocol, and Josh Norris remains out. Around the NHL, Alex Ovechkin 8 goals away from Wayne Gretzky's all-time record. The Washington Capitals hosting the Detroit Red Wings tonight. The play-in round for March Madness getting started tonight. Both of these games will be for seeds in the South Regional in the play-in round. St. Francis and Alabama State tipping off at 6:40, and then North Carolina faces off with San Diego State at 9:10. That's your sports headlines brought to you by Paddock Chevrolet, celebrating 90 years of business. I'm Derek Kramer for WGR Sports Radio 550.
Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
Noises,
I think
unprofessional.
I think I made a noise too.
Yep.
We
Make the point, and then you can make your noises. Natural, credible for the Bills in the draft. I always love it. I've forced it myself just to have the conversation.
Oh my God, have you? Yes, over the years.
How do you feel? So this is a scenario. Ian Hartitz is talking about the 2 Buckeye running backs, Henderson and Judkins, and they're like 3-4 most of the time. Caleb Johnson gets in there too in the running back rankings. It's Genty 1 on his own tier, then O'Marion Hampton 2 on his own tier, and then these guys. So second round. How do you feel? Again, I can't even get to the question, but this is a scenario where you are planning to move on from Cook sooner or later. You're not doing this otherwise. You don't need a second-round pick on a running back if Cook is here and, here for 3 or 4 years more, whatever you want it to be.
Right. If they're confident that they're going to get something done with him and really use his prime years to their benefit, then I would hate this idea. Like if Cook had just signed or was in year 2 or whatever, if the timeline were different, I would be yelling at you the way I've yelled at you almost every time you've brought this up over the last 3, 4, 5 drafts. I referenced the Travis Etienne draft. That was a year I actually liked the idea. God forbid. Late
21.
Late in the first round, yeah. So they don't have a need at all if you assume Cook is here and, either under contract for a few more years on an extension that they get done at some point this spring or summer, or even just here playing out year 4 of his rookie deal, and that's the end of the line. But if they're worried about any of that, then I think in a year where running backs are plentiful in the draft, I guess, you could make the argument that because of that you should wait and not do it until Saturday, because you might be able to get someone who was a higher round, maybe even someone comparable to James Cook on Saturday instead of having to do it on Friday. But it's got my attention. Like I've said a few times, not that I'm predicting this will happen, but an avenue the Bills could choose to go down is to just, we've never really been tested in this area. Any of the guys we've had weren't good enough to even really bother talking about a second contract. But here we are, franchise record in touchdowns last year, due for an extension, doesn't have to get one, but he's due, and we'd like to reward our guys. If they can't reach a comfortable number, then I absolutely would advocate for replacing him. I think it would be smart business. It's what, when they drafted him even, I thought, Well, second round's a little high to just want to move on after one contract. It's easier to do that with Singletary or Zach Moss, who they, of course, pivoted much earlier than that and traded him away. But you get a guy in the second round, you probably want him to be around a little while. It's not as disposable as a later pick might feel, but all the same, I still don't want to be in the business of paying top of the market contracts to running backs almost ever, especially with a guy that doesn't even play 50% of your offensive snaps. And furthermore, if you pay him and feel compelled to play him more than 50% of your offensive snaps, I'm not sure that's a great idea. They've got a nice mix here. Like, it's a nice group, and they could be all set, but I don't know, man. Treading into anywhere north of $10 million for a running back coming off of a incredible touchdown season, I don't think that's super great business.
It's both the idea, and it's still just, a what if, but it's both smart in the ways you're saying, or I think smart in the ways you're saying, and however, aren't I trying to win a championship? Mm-hmm. Don't I know I have somebody that helps me here, that has value, that knows everything he needs to know, how I coach, what our scheme, everything. Like you've got a piece in hand here in Cook, who's not old or anything. There's no buts. He's not going to score 16 touchdowns again, almost definitely. But still, like you have a known commodity that you like, and to do that, it's risky. Just in terms of the optics, or at least in terms of the optics, it's risky because you are gambling, if you will, on an unknown against, just because, on principle, I guess, you don't want to pay this running back or any running back, that kind of money for that long. I mean, that's part of it.
This is a thing where it's easier to do, your point from the Tyreek Hill trade. The Bills eventually did get there on Stephon Diggs last offseason and made the move, but it's easier to do if you've won. I mean, like everything, well, not everything, but many things, that can cut both ways. I just won a Super Bowl with you. Keep the band together. But if the Bills had won and they wanted to move on from James Cook because they don't want to pay a running back a top-of-the-market contract, I think a lot of people are like, okay, I get it.
Now's the time to do it.
Right, but if they do it now without having won yet, yeah. I mean, look, I think that's a legitimate beef to have. But I just don't know how different they'd be with somebody else. I like Cook more than the average dude, I think. Like, I admire the work he's put in. He was excellent. But that money is just not, to me, smartly spent on that position at that level. And so we'll see if they can work something out that's, not as severe as what he is, looking like he wants, then, okay, but there's still going to be a but there. I would be very tempted, no matter what, to just go, you got year 4, come on in.
Stare him down.
We will give you every opportunity to do what you did last year, and then if you want to, you want someone out there to give you that money, you will be free to do it. We're not going to franchise you. Maybe I'd even tell him that, like, if he's balking at coming in at all. And again, we have no idea if he is. We know he's publicly posturing that he wants, this much money, is looking for an extension, wants the security, and I respect him trying to do it now. If I'm on the other side of that, I think I would want to sit him down and go, look, we're not going to do it. But if you want to try to be all pro again here or something, we're not going to shy away from you. We won't even draft your replacement necessarily.
I appreciate how every day this comes up, pretty much almost every day, and you say we don't know what he's thinking or what this really is, but it seems fair to wonder, because if you're going to go public, like, repeatedly with, hey, everybody, remember, I want $15 million a year, basically, is what he's doing, then otherwise, if it's not serious, it's just an idle threat, then, like, why be so public about it? Why bother? So I want to think he is serious, and I want to kind of assume that if the Bills didn't want to do that or come close to that at least, then they'll have a problem. I mean, otherwise, why?
Yeah.
One time you go on social media, one time you're like $15 million and delete, and then like never again. But that's not when other guys get signed. There's Cook with the eyeballs, like he's staying in the room here, so to speak, trying to remind everybody that I exist and it's my turn. I think it's my turn, and I'm not kidding, I guess.
I just wouldn't assume that he'll be. It's one thing to want what you want and try to. If you don't ask for a lot, you're not going to get a lot. So he's trying. He's trying. I wouldn't want to myself assume that he'll be a problem, but it could be. It's definitely, to me, not the least bit invalid to be talking about it and wondering where he's at.
I might try it.
I
might try it.
Try
going online and just announcing that I'm due a raise.
Yeah.
I'll come up with a number.
All right.
I want it to be like pretty big because I want people to think it's more than I make, like a lot more, right? So I'll come up with a number, but that maybe I won't mean it. I'll just do it. I'm sure it'll work.
Oh, sure.
I know. For most people in life, that probably works really, really well. When work tells you, oh, okay, no, how's that? How about no?
Our championship window is open now, so I mean,
our window
would be a compelling case to pay you what you want to keep it going.
As long as you're here, that window is open. Charlie is next. Hi, Charlie.
Hi, guys. How you doing?
Good, thank you.
Thanks so much for taking this call. Last week I called you and we were talking about James Cook, and I forgot. I mentioned some of the great names, Cookie Gilchrist and some of the other great runners, Thurman Thomas, but I failed to mention O.J. Simpson. I watched O.J. because we had season tickets, my dad did, and I watched O.J. under John Rauch, and he was similarly platoon. He was playing about 40% of the snaps, and someone said this, give this man the ball 25 times, he will give you exponential greatness. And it was true. And Lou Saban came in, got the electric company, got aligned together, and did their thing.
Well, he was big.
Proved his greatness.
The difference is his size here.
Well, yeah, O.J. was 6'2", 220. He was bigger, but he wasn't faster. Let me say this about Cook. If you can do 18 touchdowns playing 42% of the snaps, what could you do if you played 65% of the snaps?
Get hurt. I
think we could have a 22-touchdown performance because he is one of the best catching runners in football. Drops aside, fumbles aside.
Charlie, I mean, respectfully, almost no chance. Almost no chance. He ran so hot last year in terms of touchdowns that almost definitely that number will come down. It's logical what you're saying, but the Bills know what he did and what he's capable of, and they didn't use him anymore in a Super Bowl effort. So I wouldn't expect them to want to do that. I feel like they have established that they don't. And I was going to ask earlier, but I never could get to the question, is to the idea, like Ian's idea of drafting somebody even on as early as day 2. How would you feel if it were Davis? Like, do they need to do that, even if they are imagining not having Cook, at some point in the future? Is Davis, good enough?
I don't think that they're very different styles of runner. So I don't think there's as much dynamic ability in Davis as there is within Cook. So I'd be hesitant to just plug and play that. If I were thinking I need to replace James Cook, if this thing were to escalate to that point before the draft, I think I'm looking at Friday, and I think I'm trying to draft his replacement.
Charlie, thanks. I remember your call from last week. Appreciate you coming.
I also saw OJ play. I didn't have season tickets, but I watched him through his prime, and he's. Obviously, his
the best ever.
He's bigger, faster. He's in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, period. Nick.
No contest.
Nick is next. Hi, Nick.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on. With Singletary and Moss, I was always like, man, I wish we had someone that could hit the hole and go, right? I think that's what we're missing. With Cook, we definitely got that. The only problem is I think you can draft that. So, with his spot demanding $15 million a year. He's not playing every down to everything that you guys are saying. And I think what's really going to screw him specifically is that he demanded $15 million online. So now everybody knows what he wants. So if he doesn't get that, it almost looks like he's a loser in the eyes of everybody else because he's saying, I need that, or that's what I should get. Mm-hmm. So now he's almost, if he doesn't get that, I don't know. I mean, he might be able to get it elsewhere, but in the Bills' specific situation where we're a contending team, he's got to figure out what he wants, and it might not be here. So it's really tough on the Bills now to negotiate that because he's made it very public what he wants. So, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, thanks, Nick.
Yeah, I've wondered all along here. We got to get to a break, but I really wonder how they feel about what he's done on social media. Like, are they just ignoring it because they're having real conversations with him and or his agent? Or are they, dude, why? What are you doing? Don't do that. You don't have to do that. Like, I wonder how they feel about it. Like, do they feel offended even?
I don't. We do this every day, right? Like, they do this every day.
Right.
I wouldn't imagine that, but who knows? Lines open at 803-0550. We can stay on it. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog here, WGR. more Bill stuff here and other things over the course of the next couple of hours. You're welcome to join us, as always, 803-0550. We've been talking about James Cook again today. Nothing new, but just our guest brought up the possibility of the Bills drafting a running back in round 2, and I got all, ooh. Anytime anybody does that, sometimes I'll even do it. So, lots to come here. Did you ever run in the Barkley marathons when you were running?
No, I never ran a full marathon.
Okay, so not this one?
But you could. I'm sure they have a half in that too. But the only I ran 2 half marathons, both the Buffalo Marathon, and I don't think Barclays was involved with them.
The Barkley Marathons is an annual event in Tennessee. 5 loops, 20 to 26 miles, 12,000 feet of climbing in each one.
Yeah.
For a total of 130 miles and 60,000 feet, which is 2 Everests. Actually, Everest, but you're going to know it if I say Everest.
Thank you.
You don't have a marked route.
You just got to kind of find your way?
Yep. You got to find your way with your stuff on your own, day and night, hot or cold, for 60 hours. And you don't even know when the race starts. Somebody lights a cigarette, and then they start. That starts the race. That's the tradition, I guess. Just reading about it for the first time. It's going on right now in Tennessee.
I did read when I was in the throes of the running, which I really enjoyed that phase of my life a lot. I read books on the subject, and I did read about extreme marathoning, which is what that sounds like.
It sounds very extreme.
Yeah, it sounds more extreme than anything I've ever read about.
You can say very extreme.
Up to and including the lighting of the cigarette as the way to officially signify the start of the competition. But like the trail marathons, days, hundreds of miles, like that kind of thing. Man, people that can manage to do that, I am really envious.
From this article, Outside Online, I believe, in a short respite from the punchy climbs and clingy underbrush, runners must famously pass through an aqueduct that travels under the Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary. Some years it's so flooded that runners are wading through waist-deep water. That's W-A-S-T-E, deep water. Wow.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm ever going to run the Barkley Marathons.
No, probably not.
Only a few dozen people have ever completed it in like almost 40 years.
Yeah, that's a bit out of my reach.
Trail runner is Mike Leone tweeted this, and he runs. Not the Amerks coach, my friend from Establish the Run, and I just got lost in it during the break here. If you follow Trail Runner, they give occasional updates on the race, which began this morning. Races to see if anybody will finish it.
I may want to start follling that just to see if anybody can do it.
I might too.
God, it's the best. I mean, I don't know about that. I don't know about waist deep, but just the freedom of being able to run. I miss it so much. My body just does not want to allow me to ever do it again. Every now and then, walking out of here, this is the place where I think about. I'm leaving where I'd be like in a good mood. We had a good show. I laughed a lot. Like I'm walking out. Man, I feel pretty good. I can't even make it to my car. My knees hurt so bad.
You might sometimes run to your truck?
I try. I take 4. I go, nope.
That kind of run where somebody watching you might think you just tripped on something and you sort of run for 10 seconds to make it look like...
Or I misjudged the bus coming on the street and I just can't do it. I miss it so much. It's such a great headspace. If you wonder why runners, you think they're psychos or something, I'm telling you, the peace that I had when I was running, I've never attained it doing any other activity in my life.
Wow. I think of runners that I know as very happy people, actually. Maybe that's what you're saying. Lines are open. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog here, WGR.
The Buffalo Bills have reportedly restructured linebacker Matt Milano's contract. The move would save Buffalo $3 million on their salary cap for 2025, but this also would make Milano a free agent next year. You could read more about that on our website at WGR550.com, as Sal Capaccio has the latest. To hockey, the Buffalo Sabres getting a win last night to kick off their 4-game road trip, winning 3-2 in overtime against Boston. The Sabres will be next in action on Thursday night in Utah, the first time that they'll be playing in Utah since the team relocated from Arizona. Lindy Ruff caught up with Jeremy and Joe this morning on WGR, and he had an update on 3 forwards still out of the lineup. J.J. Peterka is likely to return and play against Utah on Thursday. Meanwhile, Yuri Kulik is still in concussion protocol, and Josh Norris remains out. Around the NHL, Alex Ovechkin 8 goals away from breaking Wayne Gretzky's all-time record. Washington Capitals hosting the Detroit Red Wings tonight, a 7 o'clock face-off. To hoops, the play-in round for March Madness begins today. Both games for these seeds will be in the South Regional, as the 16 seed has St. Francis facing off with Alabama State. That game starting at 6:40. North Carolina taking on San Diego State at 9:10 for that tip-off. That one would be for the 11th seed in the South. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of business. I'm Derek Kramer. You're listening to WGR Sports Radio 550.
Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
I don't think that's a very good attitude.
It's Mike Schopp.
You don't think? You don't think? But I don't think you should be butting in when I'm talking to my team. You're my assistant, okay? You're supposed to back me up and go get me juice boxes when I tell you. Now go get me a juice box. You know who you're talking to.
It's the Bulldog.
I'm talking to the juice box guy. You're crazy. I'm not crazy. I'm just thirsty. Why don't you go to hell? No, you go to hell. While you're there, why don't you grab me a juice box? I'm no juice box boy, I'll tell you that. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. Yes, you
It's
are.
Mike
I'm not.
Schopp and the Bulldog on WGR Sports Radio 550.
Fun time of year with all the different sports going on. The tournament, of course, is one of everybody's favorites. Starting tonight, technically.
Yeah,
what?
I know.
I even said technically.
I know.
It is North Carolina, if you want it. Against
the injustice.
So I am boning up for these survivor pools, and everybody so far that I've heard and read on North Carolina says, oh, they totally belong in.
Okay.
The arguments apparently to these experts are twisted.
All right.
And you had an opportunity to leave off North Carolina. It's not one of their best teams. They do say, too, this I'm taking from Establish the Run. They did Mike Leone, I'm mentioning him for the second time, did a podcast about how to, win in your brackets. Recommend it. The guys were saying this is one of the best years ever for the top teams. One guy called Duke the best team in 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
I thought that era was gone.
No. What has apparently happened, and this will be football too, I guess, if it isn't already, the transfer stuff has sucked talent out of the mid-majors.
Oh, okay.
Who can't replace it. They don't have experienced players.
Don't have the money.
And those guys go to the top programs because they can. They get better, then they get a better team. They move to a better team. And so what you have is 4 or 6 top teams this year that are incredible, starting with Duke or Auburn. But, Florida, Alabama with Nate.
Yeah.
So you've got elite teams. And as recently as a couple of years ago, one of the panelists on this Establish the Run show said when Alabama with Nate Oates 2 years ago was the top team going into the tournament. They were the number 1 overall team. This year Auburn is, apparently. They were the number 1 overall team. But that year, none of the 1 seeds made the Final Four. Like Alabama, he said, I think, would have been like 7th. That Alabama team would rank like 7th this year. So you've got chalk. And I don't know what you want to do about that for your brackets because it's kind of boring to pick the ones, but maybe this is like the year where you really should pick the ones.
It did feel like when I was still, right when I don't know, stop. I mean, I pay attention, but like doing a bracket, like doing what you're doing, right? Going through this process, it felt like that was every year it felt like some mid-major was that year's darling that would make, they never won it, but like whatever, get out Sweet 16, Elite 8, whatever, like get like a 10 seed is going. Just pick the right one. Somebody's going to do it. And that seemed really cool. And I guess it goes to show you that they found a way to make that stop happening. Like the have-nots are back to being have-nots again. And then the blue bloods are back, on top because, that's the way the system usually works in life, not just in basketball or college athletics. And I did see Sammy and Joe, our Bet Sweats guys here, the Odyssey betting wing, their promotion for their show today, one of the subjects that they teased was 4 1 seeds in the Final Four.
Yeah.
It's like that's out there this year.
Yeah.
And that plays into what you were just talking about.
So, for example, I'm just thinking of this now and learning some of this now. 2 years ago, remember Florida Atlantic made the Final Four?
Yep.
I don't know what seed they were, but it was low. They made the Final Four, Florida Atlantic. 4 of those players are playing right now for other teams, and they are in the tournament.
Yeah.
San Diego State, Arkansas, Florida, they're a 1 seed with my guy Carlin Hartman on the bench.
All right.
And then Michigan. Golden is at Michigan, one of the nation's most dominant big men, this AP article says. The Florida guy is their second leading scorer. So Florida Atlantic had 4 actually great college players that, we were all, who never heard of Florida Atlantic, but they were legit good, went to the Final Four. Now they're all playing for other teams.
Right.
Even having gone to the Final Four was not enough
to keep
them there together.
Right, yeah. That Carlin, that's the guy that was at Oklahoma? Is that the same guy? Okay, right. So do you just root for him and his wherever he is then?
No, I'm going to root for my picks.
Okay.
Maybe I'll pick them because they're good.
All right.
But no.
Because I don't. I mean, I talked to this gentleman one time because of your relationship with him. We've met Nate Oates obviously and sat with Nate Oates and had him on the show.
Yep.
I root for Alabama simply because of that. Like he's the only coach I know, other than whatever the guys around here.
He's probably the only coach in this tournament who's been in this room.
Right. So that's easy. Go Alabama. Well, that's
go Bama's tough though.
That's all I got. Yeah, I know, but whatever. Like I don't know. I'm not one who sees a guy like that or. Oh, man, who's the UB football coach that went to Kansas and has done pretty well? Leipold, right. I don't sit here in Buffalo and hold that against them. Like, that's college athletics. You're in a program like this, and you have some success, and you can springboard that into, the wildest riches you've ever dreamt of. You go knock yourself out. So I always still kind of pull for those. I don't feel abandoned the way I do about, an athlete who doesn't want to be on our teams anymore, right? Which is funny because it is kind of the same thing, but it's the money, if you're a player, a hockey player or a football player, is likely pretty similar everywhere you go. In college sports, Alabama versus UB is a very different universe. So it's more understandable to me, I guess, when guys do that. So I still pull for them, even though they.
Why don't you root for the Bulldog teams? There are 6.
I don't know. Gonzaga.
Yep.
Georgia. Mm-hmm. Is Fresno State in the tournament? They're Bulldogs.
They're not.
Okay.
I'm looking at a list, so I'm not positive of all these, but I believe this is right. No.
I'm tapped out.
Mississippi State.
Oh, sure. I should have known that one.
Which plays Baylor. So, boo. Mm-hmm. That's the first game up on Friday. Drake. The Drake Bulldogs. Bryant. Oh, Bryant. I know Bryant. Rhode Island. Bryant University is Bulldogs.
Don't know.
They're in the tournament.
All right.
That's cool. I'm going to root for them. And Yale.
Of course, yeah.
Yale is in the tournament.
Yeah, that was gettable. Sorry.
You can root for them. I mean, you lived there. I've been to Yale.
I knew they won the.
Not to see you. I didn't know you.
No,
I went to the library.
Right.
Maybe there were like 10. I don't know. But I went to a library at Yale, and I was blown away. Long time ago. Back in my ESPN days.
Was there a former president there while you were there?
Probably a couple.
Then you probably went to the library.
Bush one probably was just sitting there
at Yale. Yeah. No, I don't know. I've never made that connection. Like to root for the Bulldog teams. I don't even think that had anything to do with me crushing on Matthew Stafford when he was Georgia's quarterback. I think I just liked the way Matthew Stafford played. So that was that for me. So, yeah, haven't dug in like that.
I'm hoping to see come across my feed. I'm ready whenever they are that the Steelers will sign Jameis Winston. Come on, right? Enough with Rodgers. I'm with Andrew. I'm with everybody.
Cam Hayward.
Enough. I'm with Cam Hayward. I'm with everybody. Enough with Rodgers. Who does he think he is? Answer, Aaron Rodgers. Right. Dude, I'm going to the Hall of Fame. Okay. I've even sort of bought that last year he wasn't actually terrible.
Okay.
I've bought that argument that he wasn't actually terrible last year. Like, he's probably the best you could do here, maybe by a lot.
Yeah, because
I'm sick of it.
I think a better question. Well, not necessarily a better question. Who does he think he is? It's fine. Who do these teams think he is the better question for me. Because I just don't know what you're buying is maybe fine. That's a legitimate statement. He's the best of what's left. So he's better than Jameis Winston.
You got to do what you got to do.
Congratulations. I just with the reputation and everything else, I just don't know why it would even be worth it. Like Minnesota?
That I don't get.
Like, what are you doing?
I get Pittsburgh. I do not get the Minnesota idea. I don't even believe it.
I keep wanting to not believe it, but it just sort of keeps lingering, and so I don't know.
I think that's the power of Rodgers. I think that's Rodgers' work.
Like, it's believable to me that if he thought them to be interested, that would be a holdup, because that's easily the best team here. Like, that landing spot, I don't know that would really work, that he would make it work, but it worked with Sam Darnold, so it probably could work. Man, I'm just so glad we aren't living in that world anymore, because I don't envy any team that's got to pick from the dudes that are out there right now.
I agree. It's fun, though. Every one of these, I think, how would we talk about it? Like, what would we want? If we're Tennessee, go one by one, the teams that are left. I don't think Pittsburgh is going to sign Winston, by the way. They signed Mason Rudolph. And I think they would probably play Mason Rudolph over Winston. So it would be like a backup thing or even a competition at best. They're not going to sign Winston to come in over Rudolph, who started a playoff game for them. I think that's probably what they'll do. And if they can get Rodgers, maybe they want that. If they can't, then they don't. But I think Rudolph being there probably precludes Winston.
Realistic at all that Russell Wilson goes back there?
It doesn't sound like it. It doesn't sound like they're interested. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. But if you go like the top 3 teams in the draft order, starting with Tennessee, what would we want them to do? Draft Cam Ward.
Draft a guy.
Right?
Yes.
Draft Cam Ward and start him week 1.
Yep.
That's easy?
Yes.
I think so too. Cleveland, so say Tennessee does that. What if we're Cleveland? Would we want them to draft Shedeur Sanders?
I think probably yes. I think I would. Yes, I don't know that everyone.
It's tougher.
I don't know that everyone would. He's not as highly touted a prospect. He might be a guy that's getting pushed up here. Halfway through this, probably a couple of weeks ago, he was in the 20s. I've seen mocks where he's not even in the first round. And the quarterbacks usually get artificially inflated and pushed up. That really pushed up. But I think I wouldn't say fall for it like I'd be skeptical about it. And I guess there would be some skepticism mixed in it, but of the alternatives right now, I would rather do that than settle for a veteran that I'm pretty positive is flawed enough that I'm not going to get anywhere good anyway. It might be just good enough to keep me from drafting next year's Cam Ward. So why do I want to do that? I would rather take a look at the kid. The contracts aren't as penal anymore. You're not stuck. You're not in jail if you miss on a highly drafted quarterback. Yes, it costs more than if you do it on Saturday in the draft, but still, it's not as cumbersome as it used to be, where you're going to have all this dead money and just a disaster on your hands. You just pick another one in 2 years. So I would do that.
Cleveland knows.
Yeah, I would do that.
Cleveland, it's been said, of course, we've known, but think about that they trade for Watson, and we were fixated about the controversial nature of it, and, rightly so. That's what, the headlines were. But if you get past that, you're the Browns, you're going, finally, we do not have to guess anymore. Right? We could have drafted Watson, but we traded that pick to Houston. They draft Watson. Now we're going to do this. We're going to give him the most money possible. We're going to take the heat for what the move is. But at least, finally, we have a quarterback we know is good. And what happened? He was terrible.
It's a disaster.
Finally, we don't have to guess. We don't have to make some twisted, stilted argument about some other team's Rob Johnson version, like some backup that might be actually good, or this draft pick that probably doesn't deserve to go in the first round, but, we need a guy. So that's now. They're back to that.
Right. Yep.
All those different experiments that failed. Finally, we don't have to worry about it anymore.
Like
what happened?
Like the legitimately maybe like a worst case scenario for a Browns fan at the time would have been the moral objection you might have had to acquiring the player in the first place. And look, that's a big deal. But he's going to be great. And at what point will I make peace with it? Right? At what point will I stop being mad that they took this guy on given his legal situation? Like that's an equation that every Browns fan probably was working in their head. Some of them were just like, I don't care about it at all. He's excellent at football, blah, 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 accusations, right? Other people that are maybe like thinking about it more deeply than that and getting below the surface of it were probably wrestling with, how am I ever going to feel good rooting for him? The way it went, you never had to worry about that. You just never had to worry about it. It became easy for you to just turn that back on him. Like, oh, what a horrible human being.
Yeah, you can just join the other camp.
Just join that chorus and you're all set. So you never really even had to wrestle with it, if you were inclined, again, to even be wrestling in the first place. So, yeah, that went... So in a way, like, I don't know, that I guess it went better if you hated the idea. Like, your team has been set back here many years by hitching your wagon to it, but at least you didn't have to sacrifice your moral high ground if you were on it to begin with.
What should the Giants do?
Trade for Joe Milton.
Joe Milton. Well, was that a rumor or a real report the other day? Was it yesterday? Like a third? Was that a real thing? That New England would take a third?
I don't know.
For Joe Milton? Do the Bills get a comp pick if New England gets a trade like that done? For being the team he played against and looked good against?
Right.
Remember the one play he made that was called back? Where he's like
rolling
around
to his left, like across. Yeah.
Then he makes the Diggs to Allen and Phoenix throw to end that play.
Right.
Left front corner of the end zone.
Yes.
Called back.
Yeah.
That was running through the feed yesterday with that play.
I haven't thought about him. I did not see that yesterday, so I don't think that's why that came to my mind. But maybe he should be getting talked about more than he is. I don't know. It's one game, but man, it looked pretty good.
But Dable and even Shane at the Giants can't make that their bet, if it's even possible. Like, if you could do it, could they make that their bet?
No.
Who is it then, though? They would take Rodgers, apparently, to keep their jobs.
Yeah. Good luck with
You
that.
sell your soul to keep your... Well, people have done it. Or Wilson, maybe. I hate that, though. Like, I just doubt that would work out. Russell Wilson and Daboll. because Dable just gets so after his quarterbacks. Like he does not hold back. He doesn't care about the optics of it. He just lets into them. And maybe they have been bad. But even Tyrod the one night here where he
that seems like a ill-fated combo.
It does.
Yeah.
If I were Wilson, I'd want no part of him, I think, and maybe that goes both ways, but they're gonna get somebody, and they might not be able to draft without forcing it big time.
Right.
Like you get to Jackson Dart or somebody.
Right.
Or your buddy Milroe. I don't know. Steelers, Giants, at least the Titans and the Browns, or at least the Titans, if they want, can draft somebody and it's believable. Like it's a credible idea. Yeah. These other ideas are not credible ideas. They're just awful ideas.
What a bet that would be for they get out of there. They're going to draft Milroe third, but they move down to I'll just say 15.
Yeah, or even 16. You win on 16.
And draft Milroe. And that's the bet. That would be amazing for them to take that chance.
The Jets are at least, that's settled with Justin Fields. It's really, those are the teams now, I think. I can't think of another one. Seattle with Darnold.
Yeah.
Minnesota with McCarthy.
Assuming that this Rodgers stuff is nonsense.
Yeah, what an awful idea I think that is. 803-0550, we talked some James Cook earlier. Did a little bit on the schedule, the Bills' schedule yesterday, and just how great it is for the last year at the stadium. And a lot on the draft, of course. We've been talking quarterbacks here, but get back to the idea of the Bills drafting a running back in this draft. Like, would they be, I guess you could put it this way, bold enough to do that? Lines are open for your calls. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog here, WGR.
linebacker Matt Milano's contract. That move would save Buffalo $3 million in cap space, but also make Milano a free agent in 2026. Sal Capaccio has the latest on our website at WGR550.com. To hockey, the Sabres winning last night against the Bruins, first of 4 straight on the road. They'll be back in action again in Utah on Thursday night. Head coach Lindy Ruff told Jeremy and Joe this morning that J.J. Peterka likely to play against Utah. Yuri Kulik still in concussion protocol, and Josh Norris remains out. Around the NHL, Alex Ovechkin 8 goals away from Wayne Gretzky's all-time record. The Washington Capitals hosting the Detroit Red Wings tonight. The play-in round for March Madness getting started tonight. Both of these games will be for seeds in the South Regional in the play-in round. St. Francis and Alabama State tipping off at 6:40, and then North Carolina faces off with San Diego State at 9:10. That's your sports headlines brought to you by Paddock Chevrolet, celebrating 90 years of business. I'm Derek Kramer for WGR Sports Radio 550.
For me,
I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
So he's just a big help.
Jamar Chase. Oh, cool. Oh, some Journey, but this is actually Journey. Wink, wink.
Well, some Slayer for you. See, that's
Slayer.
That works
sure.
when it's Journey.
No, of Slayer.
Yeah, but yeah.
Play all the Journey you want. Although I want Bulldog to stay, so
Yeah,
maybe don't. Just pick your spots. Maybe is a better
I don't really care anymore.
ask. So yesterday, kind of a cool phone call we got from a guy who on the heel, that's Jamar Chase, on the heels of the Bengals news signing Chase and Higgins. He said, would you rather be the Bengals or the Bills? Like roster. We asked Sal that question shortly after getting that call, and he said, well, organization-wise, definitely the Bills. And I get that. Roster-wise, I said it was close for me, and you went Bills. Allen over Burrow.
That's really almost all of it for me. You know,
there's enough of a gap.
I think, I've not seen Burrow without Chase and Higgins. Really. I mean, the injuries, whatever, right? But, he's great. He is great. But he's had those guys. I've not seen him do what Josh Allen did last year. Now, I know statistically Allen couldn't touch Burrow last year, but still, 13 wins, MVP season. Who's my Khalil Shakir? What? That's a compliment to Allen, and I'm not telling you, Burrow can't do that. But I know he's not the athlete Allen is. He's not the threat running. And frankly, his injury history already would be kind of scary to me. So that makes it easy. I feel like, not that there's a gap, there's a gap stylistically, and there's a gap that I don't know how to really exactly measure or quantify, in that Allen had the season he had without anything close to the accomplished level of player that Higgins and Chase are. So that's a feather in Allen's cap, and a reason why I would just simply say I'll take the Bills over the Bengals.
Pete Diggs was better than Higgins.
Yes, absolutely.
Maybe not better than Chase, but
I don't think so.
Better than Higgins.
Yeah, there's more run away from you, open field, that pass turned into an 80-yard touchdown with Chase, and Diggs was never that guy. He had his moments where he ran away from people, but it was not that. So yeah, I don't think
more
that's
slippery.
That's not a slight on Diggs really at all to me. Because Chase is as good as there is in the league. He and Jefferson, I think, can duke that out, I suppose. But yeah, I still like where the Bills are more. We'll see if this works. If the rest of the roster can come together enough. They're going to have to hit on. Everybody's got to hit on picks when you're paying guys that kind of dough. But they've got holes to fill, and we'll see if they get Hendrickson even parked in the garage too. That's still up in the air, I guess, and maybe that'll go right up to draft time. We'll see. But whether or not that model can really be successful, I think their offense will be great. But will it work as a team-building exercise? Maybe, but I'm not sure. I don't like the idea of spending